OP13 is an exciting set that's going to shake up the meta entirely, flip the script. And although I don't recommend buying cards during release event weekends where they're highly priced, there's still plenty of cards that you're going to want to get in this set, especially as more product becomes more open and more of the singles hit the market. As I've been doing since probably around like OP06, I've got a buy list here for you to help guides on what cards are worth getting and maybe what cards are worth holding out on. But before we go into this, I need to pay for these singles myself, so let's hear from more from our sponsor. Listen, if you're itching for a brand new playmat, now is the time to check out Nengarden, the sponsor of this video. Not only do they have brand new pre-orders up on their website for Chaos Crew, Green Fury, and the Absolute Ruler designs, which by the way, are phenomenal. But if you're a fan of Goldie Roger, Nengarden actually put out a new playmat called the Journey's End, showcasing Goldie Roger himself, and you yourself can find his one piece with the possibility of a 1 in 20 chance to get the special wanted playmat. And on top of that, if you're like me and you absolutely prefer cloth mats, Nengarden has officially posted on their site cloth mats for Green Fury, Absolute Ruler, Berserk, and Journey's End. Plus, if you want a ton of other great accessories that aren't just playmats, they've got the King of Hearts t-shirt, matching pin, other pins alongside of it through the whole cake island, and even stickers. Make sure with whatever you want in Nengarden, use my code Atrocious for 8% off. The link to their website is in the description below. Thank you so much for Nengarden for sponsoring the video, and let's get back to that video. But let's just get into the tier 1 category, starting with Garp. Now, this searcher, even though it's a red navy type, only 2,000 power, is so good. Sabo, Ace, Luffy, if you're running any of those partially red or mono red leaders, this is essentially an automatic staple within the deck. Being able to grab any card with a cost of 3 or more, it could be a character card, could be an event card, can be a stage card, is run anywhere between 2 to 4 copies in any of those 3 leaders decks. Especially in something like Red Black Sabo, for example, a deck that I've been super high on lately and planning to play in the OP13 format. It's a great card to help you be able to find non-revolutionary army cards like Marcus Mars, Stussy, Goldie Roger. Definitely glad it's a rare, not an SR. We're actually going to skip all the way to green, and I promise we'll talk about plenty more of the red cards here in the near future. Let's talk about Sanji. Sanji, especially with the on-play effect of setting 2 Dawn as active and getting 1 Dawn as active at the end of turn if you're a Film and Straw Hat type leader. This card is exceptional in a couple different green or partially green decks. Thinking about Uta, red-green Luffy, and a lot of the other green or partially green rogue stuff coming out. He's not going to be the only one that we talk about, but is going to be one that is pretty good heading into these next couple formats. Shanks is an SR that I honestly wasn't really high on at the start of its reveal, but especially in a couple different green decks, this card is awesome. Being able to restand all the Dawn, and even though you can't play event cards, character cards for the rest of the turn, stage cards even included, being able to manipulate that Dawn to be able to swing higher numbers or leave Dawn open to be able to do stuff like Red-Green Luffy's leader effect, or just counter events in general, is so exceptional, right? There's a lot of decks that want to play this card, whether you're a film deck or not. We even seen in the Chinos Cup lately an Odyssey Limp deck running a couple copies of this, right? Establishing a 12,000 power body basically for free. I feel like there's going to be a couple other decks in the future that crank up the power with this card, especially when there's Dracul Mihawk on the horizon in the Slash package, just a really good archetype in general. I would maybe pick up a couple copies of this. Trafalgar Law, one of my favorite cards in green. This 6-cost Supernova Heart Pirates film type is excellent not only in green Zoro, right, being able to play down a 5-cost character like Tashigi, like Cavendish, but also helps in a ton of different decks like Zoro Sanji, like Green Yellow Law, and even a lot of times Smoker, especially with that condition at the end of the game or low on life being able to gain blocker. There's a lot of really good uses for this card, and just like I said about Sanji, it's just really a good staple in a lot of green decks right now, and I don't see that going away anytime soon. Speaking of staples in green decks, Roronoa Zoro. This is a great card to include, especially in your Zoro decks, right? Especially because green Green Zoro is a Straw Hat Crew type leader, you get that extra 2 Dawn as active and can be played off of 3-cost Dracul Mihawk. If you've been watching my videos lately, you know that a lot of people, especially in OP13, are sliding in that 3-cost starter deck Dracul Mihawk, and this is one of the big reasons why. Especially at the end of turn, setting the character as active, it forces your opponent to have removal effects to be able to get this guy off the field and stop swinging at either your board or your leader. One of the reasons why Zoro is still a top 3 deck within the format come OP13. Jumping into blue, this is one of the best cards within the set, Edward Newgate. This 10 cost 12,000 power blocker that not only hand filters but also gives Rested Dawn to both a leader and a character. Talk about power creep. Is not only a staple card within Ace, but is appearing in a ton of other blue or partially blue decks like blue yellow Nami, right? Especially being able to be cheated out in the Ace deck on the 8-drop I Am Whitebeard event. It's one of the reasons why Ace is a strong contender in OP13 and even beyond. This is one of those characters that I think is going to be good for a very long time, especially with that ability to give Rested Dawn to a leader and a character. So it's going to be one that you're going to want to keep. And especially with 3-life leaders and 4-life leaders becoming more prevalent, I feel like, as of late, Otama is another excellent card, right? Especially getting down to that 3 or less life, whether you started there at the beginning of the game or maybe took a life on a swing. This draw 2 trash 1 effect is so good and utilized in so many different blue or partially blue decks, and is one of the reasons why blue Nami got banned. Similar to what Kaya was, I think that this is just going to be a very good utility 2K that a lot of decks abuse. So you're going to feel like you've got the smile fruit or whatever Otama is. She's smiling all the time. I don't know the lore of One Piece as of yet, but you're going to be happy when you pull this card. Blue's other SR in Yamato is also just a really good utility card in blue decks, right? With that on play of literally just drawing 2 cards and giving Arrested Dawn to your leader is so good in so many different decks, right? You talk about Zoro Sanji potentially playing this, even though this isn't a slash type character, allows you to draw 2 cards and utilize your leader effect, and as a 6k power body is a really good double swing in the next couple turns if it sticks on the field. That's just the beginning, in my opinion, of utilizing this card outside of blue red Ace. And similar to what I said about Edward Newgate, I think it's just a good card that you're going to see in a lot of decks, especially in building in these upcoming formats. Jumping into the purple cards, we got Gold D Roger cards up the wazoo. Gold D Roger is essentially an archetype that is built inside this set, and so a majority of its cards are going to be tier 1 because it's a pretty good deck, if you didn't see from my last several tier list videos. Shanks is what's going to start it off. It's the 1-drop searcher. You know me, I love searchers. I typically put them in tier 1, and especially in good decks, this is an automatic placement for me. Silver's Rayleigh is a great card that is inserted in a ton of different purple decks, right? Being able, especially on a 9 Dawn play, to not only have Rush, but on top of that, rest one of your opponent's 5 costs, which is very prevalent right now in the game, and then add an active Dawn at the end of turn for different counter events and things like that is so good in so many different decks. I mean, you talk about Roger, you talk about Ploofy, right? There's a lot of good uses for this card, especially, man, 9,000 power is just such a good number in my opinion. One of my favorite characters, Scooper McGavin. I know it's Scopper Gavin, but I think Scooper McGavin would be just so cool. He's a staple in the Goldie Roger deck pre and post the promo 8-cost Roger for similar reasons as Edward Newgate, right? Even though he's not a 12,000 power blocker, he's able to hand filter and be able to ramp Dawn onto your field, getting you closer in the Roger deck to be that 7,000 power leader. Also, just being a 7,000 power base character means that against a lot of these other 6k leaders in Ace, Sabo at that point, etc., you're going to be able to at least force a 2k out of hand to be able to get out of this guy's attack. And even in the mirror match, this guy's really, really good because you don't have to commit any Dawn to swing at him. Now, although I wasn't super high on Douglas Bullet when he was first revealed, he's actually been a really good card within the Roger deck. Not necessarily in the sense of the continuous condition of the 8 or more Dawn cards plus 2k power, but mostly because the deck runs very similar to Blue Purple Luffy in that the beginning of the game, you need to ramp every single turn. This Douglas Bullet is a great card to be able to utilize, right? 4-3, being able to add and ramp that Dawn. And if he gets to stay on the field by the time you're at 8 or more, that plus 2000 power goes a long way. Boogie is a great utility, 2k, and if you have to, you can go ahead and use that on play to once again continuously ramp. If you haven't seen from like all of these Roger Pirate cards, they all ramp. Buggy, in my opinion, is the most consistent 2k that you're going to see in the deck, at least in terms of from this set. Now, if you played this event in the Roger deck, I'm going to force you to say the entire name in order to get the effect of the card. Guess we'll have another scrap. You can only risk death while you're still alive. To put it simply, this is Roger's Gear 2 event. Being able to have an event that if you rest additional Dawn, you can go ahead and ramp, and on the counter, gain 3000 power. This is an excellent event both at the beginning of the game and at the end of the game, and a lot of times you really look for this card to be able to seal the deal and win. Same thing could be said for Divine Departure. Not necessarily because of the ramping, but as a zero cost event, trash one card plus 3000, it's a searchable zero cost event that you don't have to utilize Gum Gum Jet Gatling, right? Can be found off of the Shanks search. Say that 5 times fast, by the way. I did like 3 different tries to be able to say that. Shanks search, Shanks search. But on top of that, it has some removal potential as well, minus 8,000 power. More often than not, you're just using it for the counter, but if you need to use it in the main phase, it's an excellent option to be able to make sure you get rid of a swing. Similar to Roger, Emu is basically created entirely from this set, so let's go over all the Emu cards. We've got Saint Ethan Baron v Nusjuro. As part of your 5 Elder Exodia combo, this is the one that has Rush and minuses 2000 power on one of your opponent's characters during the attack. I feel like this is oftentimes one of the more important cards. I mean, they're all important in their own shape or one another, but this guy being able to minus 2000 power for the turn is really crucial on a lot of these like characters that are 6000, 7000 power, because later we'll talk about one of the elders that puts all of the elders to 7000 power. So being able to match that power and then minus it 2000 to make it like a 4 or a 5 when you have other elders on the field that are going to swing into it as well, even your leader, is definitely a really good removal effect on this guy. I can't believe this guy was put together, to be honest, and has a 1k counter. Now, the guy that gets the Exodia combo going, as because we're going in the numbered order, right? The 5 Elders SR. This is the only SR you really need to run in the Emu deck, especially coming out of this set. But being able to play this guy down and summon all 5 elders at the same time from your trash is so strong, right? It's one of the reasons why Emu, in a lot of people's eyes, is the best deck in format. You're definitely going to need a playset of this if you're looking to play Emu, because honestly, especially with this Activate main, you can't play it in any other deck besides Emu. It's basically OP09's 10-drop Blackbeard when that dropped. At the time, you played a playset of that 10-drop. Now, really, you don't, but I feel like this 10-drop is going to be a playset for a long time. This actually might be the most important elder in my opinion. Saint J. Garcia Saturn. On play, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, reveal a 5 elders type card, add it to your hand. This elder is probably the one that you're going to see your opponent play the most, and if you're playing the deck, you probably want to play the most. You want to play it as early as possible, and you want to play it as often as possible, right? Not only finding your other combo pieces with your other elders, right? Or maybe your 10-drop to get the whole Exodia thing going, but on top of that, being able to reorganize the bottom of your deck to know because you're going to cycle your deck for sure, to know exactly when you're going to hit specific stuff, right? If you've played OP13 Nami before it got banned, it's the same exact thing where at the end stages of the game, you know what your bottom 20 cards are in what order, so that helps you really push out the game plan and execute it effectively. Saint Shepherd Jew Peter is the one that I mentioned earlier that gives all of your elders a base 7000 power, which is so good in this format. As I mentioned earlier, 7000 power is a great number, forces at least a 2k out of most decks hands on each swing. I've also got Saint Shalria here. This is your staple 1-cost searcher, right? Being able to not only find a Celestial Dragon type card, which is all of your Elders and a couple other cards like 2Ks, but on top of that, being able to build up the trash and be a perfect candidate for your leader effect, right? If you play this on the first turn of the game, you can get 4 cards in the trash because you look at the top 3, you trash 2 of them, and then you have to pitch another card from your hand after grabbing the one from the top 3, which equals 3 cards, and then utilizing your leader effect, you can trash the Shalria to get the 4th card in trash and draw 1 card. It's a great way to get the Celestial Dragons to those other conditions that they need to get those extra effects like the protection, like the rush. And so you love opening with this card in your hand. We've got Saint Topman Warcury here. This is one of the 2 blockers that we'll talk about, and especially with that on KO effect of drawing 1 card, it is so nice to be able to replenish your hand with this body every single turn, especially when you're doing your Exodia combo. His only downfall though is that he's a 4-cost body, which has a lot of removal potential, I feel like, or I should say resting potential in some matchups, but he's still a very good card in a tier 1 rare nonetheless. Saint Marcus Mars is the final 5 Elder that we'll talk about. He's a great card in my opinion, especially the most flexible options in decks outside of Emu. If you've been watching my videos lately, you know that I'm actually playing it in my red-black Sabo deck, because not only can he be played off of the 8-cost dragon, but the condition to be able to gain blocker and not be removed from the field is that you just need 7 or more cards in trash. You don't have to be a Celestial Dragon. You don't have to be Emu. You just need to have that condition of 7 or more in the trash, which is very easy to do for a lot of black decks. Also, with that on play effect of being able to KO a base cost 5 or less character, gives it the potential to be in a lot of different stuff. I really like this card, and I think is probably one of the general most useful cards within the set. I've also got this guy, which I don't know how to pronounce his name, Saint Mjosgard, probably wrong. He, in my opinion, is the most consistent, not 5 Elder, not also named Shalria type of card within this deck. Most everybody is running a playset of these, or at least several copies of this 2K, and is also pretty good within the mirror match, right? With that on play of being able to trash your opponent's Mary Joie stage card, right? That 1 cost. That is what most people use in the mirror, by the way, can actually be so good, right? Because most all emus, I think, should at least run a 1 of the 1 cost and 7 cost stage. Once they lose that stage, they're not getting that back. Talking about the non-character cards in this color, the 5 Elders are at your service is a great 1-cost searcher, right? Similar to Saint Shalria, if you use this on your first turn going first, on your 1 dawn turn, you can have 4 cards in the trash at the end of the turn, right? Looking at the top 3, grabbing 1, so 2 hit the trash, plus this event hits the trash is 3, and then you can use your leader effect to pitch a card out of hand to draw 1 card, which is your 4th card. Plus, getting this on trigger is so good. The World's Equilibrium cannot be maintained forever is a great card within this deck as well, not only having removal potential to get something bigger than what maybe Marcus Mars could touch, but also in the end stages of the game being that plus 3,000 counter power is so flexible for the deck. A lot of people love this, and it's a great card in the end game, especially in Never Existed in the first place. This is another great one, right? Because not only in the mirror match, if your opponent plays the 7-cost stage, which we'll talk about here in about 20 seconds, you can get that off the field, but being able, as long as your leader is Emu, to gain plus 4,000 power on the counter is so nice. These plus 4,000 power counter events are so good within the One Piece trading card game. They fix so many good numbers. And that 7-cost stage, the Empty Throne that I talked about, is really what makes Emu so good in my opinion. Not only being able to search it out at the beginning of the game and play it for free, gotta get these pats in. But being able to rest 3 Dawn and play a 5 Elder card, which could be the 10-cost 5 Elders SR for only 3 Dawn, is so good as long as you meet that Dawn requirement in there. Being able to reutilize that other Dawn for other things within your turn, like attaching to lead and swinging, or maybe playing out another character or event or something. Coming up on the back half of the tier 1 cards, we have Edison. Edison is a staple card in the Vegapunk deck, deck if you've been loving that one. And especially with that trigger, you can also use it in plenty of other decks like Bonnie. This is just a good utility 2K, especially with multiple ways to be able to rest a 3-cost or less. Really makes your opponent afraid of like playing chum blockers in the respected matchups where you want to play this card. Especially if you have Scientist or Egghead Search, this is a good one to have. Shaka, another reason why people are very excited to play Vegapunk in OP13. This is an Egghead Scientist 7,000 power character that you can either play off your leader effect or the 5-cost Vegapunk SR from EBO2. This enables such really good aggression, especially when you talk about the Vegapunk deck, and is a big reason why this vanilla card has made some noise within the format and in the archetype. This Bonnie is just a crazy card. I not only recommend this if you want to play OP13 Bonnie or even Vegapunk, but especially because we know that starter deck 29 is going to be an Egghead Luffy, right, yellow deck. That's another leader that can utilize this card, right, with that on play. If that starter deck leader has the Egghead type, this is a 10,000 power rush character, and by the way, your opponent takes a life immediately before you swing. Also, having a trigger on it is, I think, the biggest body to have a trigger in general, which is another reason why it's so good within the Bonnie deck, right, that comes in this set. Not only are you going to be able to get your leader effect off, but if you get it from life, resting a 7-cost or less is so good. There's a lot of big bodies that you will want to rest. Stussy's another good SR, right, but for a couple other reasons. It's a 7-cost, 7,000 power blocker, which is a pretty good number, but especially if you have an Egghead leader, you can play a character of the cost of 5 or less with a trigger from your hand, which for all the Egghead decks is a majority of the characters. Think about also in the Vegapunk deck where you can play down the 7-cost Stussy to play down the 5-cost Vegapunk, to play down a Scientist character like the blocker Shaka or the vanilla Shaka that we talked about earlier. This Stussy can very easily make your board wide and aggressive and is so cool in my opinion, and one of the best base rare illustrations that we've got in this set as well. Like, I love this Stussy. Lilith also has slowly become just a generically good searcher, right? We're seeing this played in a couple different decks, especially decks that are heavy with the trigger count, right? Lilith being able to look for any card that has trigger. It can be an event, it could be a stage, it could be a character, it can be an Egghead type, can be a Land of Wano, Kiku Nojo, a 2K Frankie. With the trigger of activating the on play effect is so nice in so many decks, especially for additional decks like Robin. If you're a big Robin Cooper like myself, this is a great card. And the final card in the tier 1 category, we've got Sabo. Sabo is the only secret rare that I put in the tier 1 category, mostly because its deck that it's played in is like a crucial card to have. It's what makes the whole deck function. Being able to not only be an 8-cost on that activate main, but also give a Dawn to your red-black Sabo leader to activate its ongoing effect is so good. The deck literally revolves around putting this guy out so many times, whether you're playing it hard on the field, bringing it back from the trash with the Monkey D Dragon, or whatever. This card is going to be very good for a long time, and I highly encourage, especially if you're playing Sabo like me, you got to get a playset of this secret rare. Moving into the tier 2 cards, we've got Ace and Sabo and Luffy. Now, this really wasn't being played in anything, but I've started to see in the EBO3 format, if you saw my video the other day, this is being played a lot in Vivi, right? The new Vivi leader being able to minus 3,000 power on any character on your opponent's side is just so good. And if there are any control partially red decks out there like Marco, they may also want to consider this card, right? It's a 2K, and being able on that activate main not only to do the minus 3,000 power, but give an active Dawn to one of your leader or character cards can actually fix a ton of numbers, especially when you're trying to remove big bodies off the field. Even though Goa Kingdom is not really like an established archetype or anything, anything like that, even though there are a couple Goa Kingdom and stuff cards out there. It wouldn't surprise me if this is like a red utility card like Otama in the future. Vivi I'll talk about as well, is gaining a lot of popularity because of the Vivi deck. It's a one-drop searcher, and I know I've said I've usually put one-drop searchers in the tier 1 category, but there's so many good searchers if you're playing a Straw Hat Crew kind of deck like the Garp that we talked about earlier that I think is kind of just a little bit better. This may shine a little bit more once we get to the post-rotation format, outside of just being played in that EBO3 Vivi. It's got a lot of different conditions on it, right? Look at the top 4 cards, which is different than a lot of searchers. Get an Alabasta or Straw Hat, so there's multiple different cards that you're looking for, and then it has to be a cost of 2 or more. Still a very good card though, especially if you're an Uta fan. This is a great card to have, but I'm starting to see this card get played in a couple more decks, right? Especially because the on play and the on KO effect are not leader locked or type locked or anything like that. It's just a good way to be able to set up the Dawn once again and be able to reutilize that Dawn for either counter events or extra power on the swings, and being able to play out a character to be able to maintain board presence and keep up the tempo is actually really good in my opinion. I think that this is just a really solid SR. Helmeppo, a very good vanilla 2K, right? Especially as a slash. If you kind of go in a little bit more on the Navy side, right? Because you've got the Kobe as well. This is just a good 2K to have. Now, Vista, I see this card on and off in a couple different decks. In Red Blue Ace, this is an interesting card, right? Because it's got that protection effect, cannot be KO'd or would be removed from the field unless they want to do a double effect in a sense. And on top of that, being an 8,000 power double attack is so good. And if you saw my video once again the other day talking about the EBO3 deck list, you would have seen that Vivi is starting to play this card in Whitebeard Pirate versions of the deck, basically having that double protection of the Vista and the leader effect. And this can be an 8,000 power rush double attack because of Vivi's leader effect. This card is really sneaky, and I think it's going to be a good one to have, so make sure that you have this rare in your back pocket. Now, Boa Hancock, even though you may not think of it as anything insane, the 3-cost 5,000 power character has that on KO effect if your leader is Boa or multicolored. Draw 2 cards. This is going to be an excellent card in the not only Boa Hancock in OP07, but also OP14, and is definitely one that you want to play, especially after that you've got the Boa Marigold, which can play this character out if you've got not a 6 cost in your hand. There are 2 great cards that go hand in hand in the Kuja Pirates build, especially for Boa Hancock decks, and especially if you're preparing for OP14, might want to pick these up, even though neither of them will really be that expensive, I think. If I bow down to power, what's the point of living? I've actually seen this be played a little bit in the blue or partially blue decks, right? Because that main of being able to make your leader unblockable and on the counter be 3,000 power. There's a good amount of decks that are actually utilizing this, even if it's only 1 or 2 copies, especially because unblockable is very good to try to go in for the end game, with Ace playing a ton of blockers, with Emu playing a ton of blockers, even stuff like Zoro playing blockers. It's a good way to catch them off guard. Sliding down to purple, Nekomamushi is a card and a 2K that is seen often in Roger Pirates. It's not a staple like Buggy, but being able to have the option in the end game to KO chum characters could be very beneficial to a lot of people's game plans to try to swing out for game. Okay, now going down to black, St. Charlos is a nice blocker that a lot of Emu players are using just as a 2-cost play down. Trash 1 card from the top of your deck, can build up the trash a little bit, can be a little chum blocker, but because of what I said earlier with the stage, it's a great way if you need to play out multiple blockers in a single turn. You know, you can pay the 3 and then the other 2 you can use for this Charlos. Or if it's in a later turn like 6, 7, 8, you can also leave Dawn open or reutilize that Dawn to be able to swing bigger numbers. Not everybody plays this, but this is one of the more frequent tech cards that we see within Emu decks. I've got Hack in the tier 2 category. It's not a staple in the Sabo decks, but I think it's just a good 2K to be able to utilize, especially if worse comes to worse. You're playing this off of the 8-cost Black Dragon from OP12. It's a 7,000 power body. Kozuki Hiyori, I'm seeing a lot actually in a couple different yellow decks, being able with that Land of Wano blocker and on the on KO to be able to heal a life. This is a great chum blocker, especially if you're not facing against an opponent that has like removal decks that are very frequent with chum blockers. You can basically guarantee that this card is going to heal you one. Now, Luffy I've got in the tier 2 category with this secret rare. This secret rare is not necessarily as impactful within the top couple decks, but this has a good spread in a variety of decks, right? Being a 7,000 power double attack character makes it a big threat, but if your leader is multicolored, you can set up 4 Dawn as active and play out more characters on top of that. This is really good in something like Zoro Sanji and also Red Green Luffy, and maybe even more in the future because he's Fishman Island type, he's Supernova type, and Straw Hat Crew type. Now finally, the tier 3 category, we've got Emporio Ivankov. Now this freaking like broke the internet, it felt like, when this was revealed, but not all Bello Bettys are actually playing this card like a lot of people thought. If this was a 2K specifically, I could see it happen, but it's still a respectable 3,000 power body that can be boosted up to a 6K. It's definitely a valid tech option if you're worried about a lot of removal decks in the format, especially with something like Emu. We've got Cobra here, which is a valuable 2K in the Vivi deck, right? Especially off of the Vivi Searcher. It's an Alabasta type, so if you're going to be playing the Vivi deck or just use the Vivi Searcher in general in whatever deck you're trying to play, you can consider this 2K, right? Because it's searchable. Gum Gum Gatling Gun is a great card that I've seen 1 or 2 people utilize as a tech option in decks, right? For 1 Dawn on that main phase, you can immediately give that Dawn to one of your Luffy cards and give an opponent's character minus 2,000. It almost feels like a Silver's Rayleigh kind of Dawn, right? And especially as a red card, if you're playing a Luffy deck, you're going to have plenty of options to be able to use this. Now, the only green card that I'll talk about in this is this. I know you're strong, so I'll go all out from the very start. This is another one that I see as a tech option, usually as 1 or 2 in these partially green decks, right? With the Supernova and Straw Hat Crew typing. Being able almost essentially to be like a carrot or like a mini Luna in some instances. Freezing 7 costs or less is so good within this format, in my opinion. Being able to stop small swings, right? Kind of delaying a turn and maybe even using it as a plus 3,000 counter gives it a lot of flexibility if you want to run this. Now in blue, we've got the Boa Sandersonia. I've seen this in a couple different blue, yellow Boa lists in the OP13 era, especially because on that on play, if your leader is Boa Hancock, whoa, you get to play this Boa Hancock down on the field to then draw 2 cards on the on KO. It would definitely be worth, if you've got the opportunity to pick up a playset of these for cheap, to maybe have them at the ready. Now, this last second event card that I'm including in tier 3, I originally didn't have this when I was getting ready to make this video. It's Phoenix Pry Apple. I'm mentioning this card because I'm seeing a lot of Vivi decks are starting, like after I posted that video the other day, I'm seeing more and more people pick up this event, especially when you talk about in combination with something like Silver's Rayleigh on a 10 Dawn turn. You can go out, play Silver's Rayleigh to minus power somewhere, and then with Phoenix Pyrample and your leader effect, minus some more power and KO a 3,000 power or less character. You can minus 5,000 power at max in total before using this event with just your leader effect and a Silver's Rayleigh back to back, and gives it a lot of power potentially, especially as a 3,000 power counter event. I'm really curious to see this in Vivi going forward and wondering if more people will play it. And it'll be curious heading into the EBO3 format, especially when you talk about pre-Roger promo. We see a lot of people played this Inarashi card. Essentially, it's a ramp card. Who knew? And you can get a pesky like little 1-drop or something off of the field, especially if you're worried in the early game them going a little bit more aggressive on the swings, like swinging 5/5 with the Searcher. And especially on the pre-8 cost Roger promo, a lot of people were playing Kozuki Odin, right? Being a 5 cost blocker that also ramps a card. It's just another card to be able to get that consistent ramping effect that you're looking for in the deck and that you need to use to survive. Now, Goldie Roger, I rarely have seen people play this, but it feels interestingly enough to not at least have a playset if you can get them for like under $1 each, right? This Goldie Roger 13,000 power slash and be able to give your leader a lot of power and minusing power. This could be like a tech option that we see like some Rogers run. I don't know. It could be interesting. The last couple cards I'll talk about, Koala. Now, Koala I originally had in my Sabo list, and I don't really know if it's worth it, but is a nice card to be able to be that A cost and fulfill your leader effect like I talked about with the Secret Rare Sabo. It's just really hard to play because like you're always playing the Sabo instead, right? This just has counter on it. Especially with other partially black Rev Army leaders like Koala, you could see this Koala be played in that deck. It's just unfortunate because Koala can't find Koala. And the last card that I'll talk about in this video is Ace. Now, even though it is, in my opinion, the worst secret rare of the three, still being able to potentially have Rush, give a Rested Dawn to your leader, and bounce back a 5-cost character on your opponent's side to where they can't play it back down can be so advantageous in a lot of situations. I've seen some decks play around with this leader, and it could be really good if there's a lot of 5 costs within the meta that you're trying to get off the field, right? If, let's say, in the Green Zoro matchup, you bounce back their Tashigi, they can't play it down again. They have to play down a 4 cost or less if they're going to. And that's if they even have one in hand. You could see this Ace have a little bit of niche play, in my opinion. And that's going to be it. Again, this buy list is also in the description below. It's a free Google sheet that you can look at and look at any of the other tabs from any of the other previous sets that I've covered. And I appreciate you clicking on this video. And also just want to give a quick shout out. Thank you so much for 20,000 on YouTube. I plan on having in like an actual like 20,000 little thing, tell you guys something cool video here soon. So just want to give thanks to all of you for the continued support and hope to see you give more support. Let's get up to 30 now. We're chasing the big numbers, maybe someday get the play button, but for now, let's just talk about One Piece.